Welcome to the show, Make It Plain, the Eric, Key, and Cameron Show. On today's show, we will consider creation. Stay tuned. This podcast is dedicated to addressing various topics from a biblical perspective, coupled with practical solutions for daily application. In essence, we want to take the Bible, which is relevant for all that we need in this life and the one to come, 2 Peter 1:3, and just make it plain. If you'd like to reach out to us and submit questions or comments regarding the show, we love to hear those, love to address them. We really do appreciate when we receive correspondence from you guys, and we enjoy answering those. Somebody will email you back, as Key always laughs at me because I'm up early answering emails. And so by the time Key gets up, he's got like 30 emails. But our email address is makeitplain, hab22@gmail.com. Today's episode is a good one. We want to talk about creation. There's a lot to unpack there because we know that the world, well, there are typically two main views about how the universe and the world began. You have evolution, you have creation. Yeah. And so in this episode, we want to talk about creation. And there's a lot to unpack there. So Key, just coming out the gate, what do you think about creation or the beginning of the universe?
You know, when we talk creation, we have to have the mindset to acknowledge that there is a God. Right. Because without God, how could all this exist? But when you talk to the person who says, well, there can't be a God, who do you know that can make something out of nothing? Yeah. None of us are able to create anything out of thin air. As the Bible speaks in Psalm 19, God spoke it, boom. Right. There you have it. Right. You know, I love the fact that when somebody goes to say, well, God can't be real, and then you start pointing out all these things. Who can make water? Who can make sand? Who can make, you just name it and you have it. So when we look at creation, it proves to us that there is a higher power, that there is indeed a God. You have matter that can only be made by God. You have time. All these things that are constructed inside of creation have to point to God. Right. Yeah. The idea of design, and intentional design, that's one of our strongest arguments. We've got several for creation, but that is one of the strongest one, the idea of design. And you made me think about something, Key, when you say that about matter being created. Just on the very opposite end, you can't destroy it either. Only God can truly do that. You think about water, you can boil it, you can drink it, you can evaporate, but you can't destroy water. Right. Like it just goes through a cycle. It goes up and goes back down. Like this table, you can burn it, you can beat it with a sledgehammer, but it's going to turn to ash. It's going to go back into the ground and a tree's going to grow. Like so only God can truly do that. And really, if you think about utter destruction, the end of the world, that's got to be miraculous too. That has to also be miraculous. Cam,
I like what Keith said about, God, only God can make something out of nothing. I think the Latin term is ex nihilo. Ex nihilo. Hebrews 11:3. Yeah. Through faith, we believe that the worlds were framed by the word of God, so that thing which is seen would not be the thing which do appear. And so every time I think about that, I always use this analogy, like for example, you and I, we could make a sandwich because we got the ingredients that already exist. Sure. We got the bread, we got the lettuce, we got the cheese. We can go to the store and buy it, but we can't create a sandwich. Only God can take nothing. Yeah. And make something. Right. God took nothingness, before the world was created. There was nothingness. Right. God made the molecules, the atoms, all of the little small intricate details, made something, and then he created the world.
Which also would ask the question, or would address the question, if there was nothing, then wouldn't there always be nothing? And when I say that, I mean as in no God. If there was never a first action, would there ever be one? Like if there was never a first cause, would there ever be one? Like, because if atheism is true and there is no God, then there could be nothing. and there will always be nothing.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like it's just logically
Consistency.
Yeah, you have to be consistent in
Right.
that. So and we talk about Genesis 1:1 in the beginning. God created the heavens and the earth.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember when I was in school and I was taking apologetics and had to write a term paper, and I did mine on the origin of the universe. And there was this biologist who was a Nobel Peace Prize. I can't recall now if he won or if he was just a nominee, but his name was Dr. Herbert Spencer. And he said that he had discovered the order in which the universe came into existence after the Big Bang.
Right.
He said time in the beginning, force, God, action created space, the heavens, and matter, earth. That's what he said.
The 5 manifestation of the unknown.
Right.
Yep.
And I told him, I was like, well, he just read the Bible. Like,
Yeah, that's
he didn't come up with anything.
That's Genesis 1.
Yeah,
Genesis
1:1. He just read the Bible.
Right.
And but that shows us clearly that the universe itself is not even eternal.
Right.
Right. In Genesis 1:1, we clearly see in the beginning, God created.
Well, even
made.
when Paul wrote Titus 1:2, where he says, "In hope of eternal life, which God that cannot lie, promised before the world began." So there was a time, you know, if we're looking at it logically,
right,
where the world did not begin or have, you know, was not there. It had a starting point. Oh.
Especially when you teach even salvation, 1 Peter 1:18 through 20. For as much as you know that you were not redeemed with corruptible things as silver and gold from the vain conversation received by tradition from your fathers, but with the precious blood of Christ as of a lamb without blemish and without spot, who verily was foreordained before the foundation of the world.
Right.
But was it any last times manifest for you?
Right.
Like the lamb was slain. God already had salvation plan before he ever created the world.
Wow.
Already in it.
It's
already
amazing.
In mind. You know, and that's when you think about creation also. If I told you this building it just appeared, the question you will say, well, Key, how did the building get there? I just said, no, it just appeared. Now, when is the last time you ever seen something just appear? You know, I used to love when I used to still do appreciate what Brother Mosier used to say to us when he gave the watch illustration. A man walking in the field and he finds a watch. Obviously, the watch was created, like somebody had to create the watch. But then, you know, there was also somebody who created the field, you know, and it goes back to the scriptures where every house has a maker.
Right.
Everything that is made, you know, there is a builder to everything that exists. Right. So why would we discredit God in that with all that we know right here? But again, you're dealing with somebody who's an atheist. You know, to me, it takes a lot more faith to be an evolutionist, because if you're going to believe that we came from the monkeys or oozes or some type of sludge, and I don't never see any people going to the zoo to go visit a chimpanzee to go get a blood transfusion if that's our cousin.
Right.
I never see us going to, you know, where's the next monkey that's going to evolve to the human?
Why'd they stop?
Yes.
Yeah, that's the question I always ask. Like,
because I want to look at a monkey and I want to tell a monkey, man, hey, dude, I don't know why you choose to be. Look at me. Like, look at me and look at you. Why you choose to be you? Why don't you just become me?
Somebody put y'all may have seen this video of this orangutan driving the golf cart. And it was like, it's not, somebody trained the orangutan to drive pretty good. But I asked the question, put him on the interstate.
Right.
you want to be on that interstate.
Right. And by the way, would you want to ride with him? You know, no.
So we could train animals, but obviously we know, man, you know.
Sure.
Man, and think like you just said, you know, why aren't we still evolving?
Yeah.
You know.
Or if evolution, things go from less complex to more complex. Right. If that's the case, right, then we should still be evolving.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we should have superpowers by now. Right.
Yeah. We should be superhumans at this point. And if the Big Bang does work, you know, if an explosion can hurl everything into perfect order, man, give me a stick of dynamite, empty field, I'll make me a mansion. Just
it doesn't.
Boom, mansion. I mean, you know.
Well, and then when you think about the Big Bang, you know, I often think about it because I said it one day in Bible class, I said, who heard the Big Bang? Man wasn't created until day 6.
Yeah.
Like, so who would have heard it on the first day? Like when it first happened?
Yeah, how could you know?
Right.
It's kind of like the tree falling in the woods if nobody's around.
Well, you know,
That's
yeah, I know. If the Big Bang happened and man didn't exist to hear it, did it really happen?
Did it really happen?
You know, atheism is interesting because in order to be an atheist, you have to say, I know that God does not exist, which means you have to know everything, which makes you omniscient, which makes you God.
Man, I never thought about that.
Because there could be some rock in the Amazon, there could be some rock in the Amazon rainforest, and under that rock, you know, 700 feet under that rock is the existence of God.
Mm-hmm.
Like you'd have to know that though. You'd have to know everything at all times.
Or the guy or woman, whoever, who's the atheist that says that there is no God, but goes and stands in the mirror and looks at the evidence. Like you are the evidence.
Right.
Made in the image of God, and you're saying there is no God. That's the craziest thing I've ever heard of.
It's crazy, man.
You're looking at the evidence.
And
indisputable evidence.
Right, indisputable. And what's so interesting is that Jesus taught. New Testament supports and teaches creation, Mark 10:6. Right. Jesus said, in the beginning, he made them male and female. Paul said in Romans chapter 1, verse 10, for the invisible things of him from the creation of the world, are clearly saying, being understood by the things that are made, even his eternal power and Godhead, so that they are without excuse.
And then he comes right back behind us and says, they worship and serve the creature more than the creator. That's crazy when you think about that.
Yeah. That they'll work. The world will worship a cow, the water, the moon, the sun, the stars, and all of those things bow down and worship God.
Right.
You know, it's kind of like the old saying that everything obeys God but man.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You know, man has always sought out a way to discredit God.
Yeah.
And it has not changed since the beginning, since sin crept in. It has not changed. Right. Giving honor and reverence to something else, like Eric just said, whether it be, I should say today, it still happens rampantly. We have idolatry that still exists today. And it's not little figurines and things like that.
Right.
Now it's the stuff you wear, it's the things that we have in our hands. It could be a spouse, it can be money. All these things that take you further and further away from the one who created all things.
Right.
Yeah.
I love when you read Isaiah 46 and it starts off when it says Baal bows down and Nebo stoopeth. They are all gone into captivity. Mm-hmm. Verse 3, he makes a statement and he says, I'm the God who born you from the belly. I'll carry you to your hoary hairs or your gray hairs or your bald head like myself. He said that he has been there. Mm-hmm. And then he details like how they make these idols, how they carve them up, they do all these things and they sit them in a place and they get knocked over when they come and take them away and they don't do nothing.
Right.
Yeah. It's interesting that he talks about the woodsman that goes out, cuts down a tree, fashions an idol out of, so he takes half of the tree and he uses it as wood to heat his stove to cook his food. He takes the very other half, makes an idol, and cannot see that when the wood that burned in the stove is ash, is the same thing as this idol. He bowed down and worships the idol, but wouldn't bow down and worship that ash.
Yeah.
Like Isaiah just really shows the absurdity of, but here's the crazy thing. Man, since the beginning of human history, has always sought to worship someone or something. Where does that come from? Ecclesiastes 3:11.
I remember it was a guy doing our gospel meeting one time. He was talking about man has a God-shaped hole.
Yes. Oh, wonder who that was. I wonder who did that. That is correct. In Ecclesiastes 3:11, man has this God-shaped hole that he tries to fill with everything, because Solomon said he had made everything beautiful in his time. He also set the world, in Hebrew, that word world is eternity. He set the world in their heart so that no man can find out the work that God hath made from beginning to the end. Right. Man doesn't know what's after this, but he yearns to know. Mm-hmm. I don't care who you are. Yeah. I don't care if you're an atheist or a Christian. You've asked the question, what happens when I die? You have asked that question.
You've thought about it.
You thought about it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just like you made reference to, Cam, Hebrews 1:1-2, God has sundry times and in diverse manners spake in times past to the fathers by the prophets, hath these last days spoken to us by his Son, whom he have ordained heir over all things,
Right.
by whom also he made the worlds. Hebrews 11:1-3, I think you made reference to too.
And so, when you think about creation too, man, you think about the fact that I think we mentioned in season 1 about, that being part of general revelation.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, and in Romans 1, God said because of creation or general revelation, the Gentiles were without excuse. So today, just from a simplistic standpoint, like man is without excuse, even knowing that there's a God. So you can't walk around and say, well, there's no God. I don't believe there's a God. When you see all of these, small, minute things, the sun, trees, clouds, birds, you see all these things in nature and you're still saying there's no God.
Can you imagine what I can understand Philippians 2:9-12, that every knee is going to bow and every tongue is going to confess because God has given him a name that is exalted above all names. But can you imagine the atheist on the day of judgment, the entire foundation of what they had built their earthly life on crumbling just at the very sight of Jesus? Everything they thought to be right on earth crumbles just seeing him.
Man.
How in the world can you not bow when your very foundation falls? How can you not bow? Man, that's interesting.
I think one of you all said earlier about that argument about cosmology, cause and effect.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to say it was one of the philosophers, modern day philosophers, maybe Stephen Hawking or someone along that line. One of the prominent doubters, deniers. They got different terms for that particular brand of atheism, but he was trying to reinforce his notion that there's no God. But it was ironic. He wanted everybody to buy this book.
Yeah.
It's like, man, that's the argument.
Right.
Like, you an author, you have a book, you have a product that you want people to read.
Right.
God is the creator. He has a product called creation that we can look at and we can see that he exists.
And he has a product that he wants us to read.
And he has a book.
Definitely has a product he wants us to read.
He has a book. So, but creation demands. But here's the problem that creation poses for those who want to deny it. Because if you accept creation, then you are admitting that God governs everything.
Yeah,
and you don't want that. You don't want to be governed. Man, that's the problem with people. That's the problem with humans.
Yep.
We don't want authority. Just like you said, everything worships God but man, because man doesn't want authority.
Everything works the way that God wants it to work.
Yeah.
Think about that with creation. You've heard it said that if the earth moves a little bit toward the sun, we'll burn up. We move a little bit away, we freeze to death. What man would have thought that up?
Yeah.
What man would have said you put something in the ground and then you water it and then all of a sudden something is going to grow from there?
Yeah.
What man would have, like who would have thought these things, or who has organized things so well like that? I don't know. I know some meticulous people, some people who are very detail oriented. I don't know anybody who can make something that continues to look at Genesis 9. What do we see with they got out the ark? Mm-hmm. You're gonna have all the season. Have we ever missed a winter?
No, they're still here.
Right now weather's so crazy. We have every season, but as long as we live, we always have summer, fall, winter, spring.
Right.
It continues to do the same thing. Yeah. Consistency. I've been here 36 years.
Yeah.
It's done the same thing for 36 years.
Man, I read something a couple of years ago, kind of go along the line of creation, but they were some doctors. They were studying, in football player and boxers, this phenomenon, CTE.
Mm-hmm.
Uh-huh.
And so they was like, how do we study this? How do we figure out what's causing these traumatic brain injuries and subsequent results? So they said, let's look into nature. You know what they studied?
What?
they study woodpeckers.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, when they study woodpeckers, they come to find out how woodpeckers, these small birds, able to drill their heads, 1,000 times a day against this wood. They have a built-in mechanism that allows them to absorb the shock from banging their head on that tree. And it's like, who would have thought of that?
Look at ants. It's something as small as an ant. The pheromone that an ant sends off and you see ants come together. You take one little crumb, and these ants will come together, or you take something a little bit bigger, and these ants will take this thing and will take it where it needs to go.
Right. Well, we have water from our municipal water companies that send water to our homes. If you've ever been to a water plant, like one of those places, and visited how they purify the water that goes into the sewers to send back to us, you know what they did? They just looked at nature. They watched water run off of mountains, down rocks, and they just replicated the system.
Wow. It's funny you said, because I just saw it coming here this morning.
Yeah. I seen it too.
Yeah, it's just wow. They just took it and replicated that system. That's how they purify water to send it back to us, to our homes. Man. They took what God did. It just replicated.
You should never told me that, man, because I would be mad because I got to pay for water.
You think about it, you see all these natural springs, and people bottle, people bottle it. It's coming. By the time it makes it to the bottom, or it's coming off, put your bottle under there, boom,
man,
pure water,
pure water. And in Acts 17, when Paul had his debate with the Epicureans and the Stoics, the philosophical minds in Athens, Greece at that time, it's interesting that he used apologetics,
right?
Yeah.
Because he's talking to folk that don't have this detailed knowledge of the law. He's talking to people, Gentiles, who very bright individuals, and he's using creation and he's using apologetics and Christian evidences to prove to them that God exists. And he even quoted one of their own pagan poets, "For in him we live and move and have our being." As certain also of your own poets have said, we are also his offspring. Paul quoted a pagan poet to them to let them know even your own poets understand this. Right. Your own poets understand this.
And I like what he does in Acts 17, because we think about even today, we gospel preachers, defenders of the faith. But one thing Paul did, Paul stayed in their neighborhood. Mm-hmm. Acts 17:24.
Right.
God that made the world and all things therein. Like he did not deviate from this conversation about God. Nope. And it was all said and done. He started with God. And in verse 30, you know what? There will come a day that the same God that you rejected, you're going to be
judge the world in righteousness.
Yeah. Yeah.
He's given assurance on all man that he's raised that one from the dead. James 1:17. Yeah. Every good gift and every perfect gift is from above and cometh down from the Father of lights, with whom there is no variableness, neither shadow of turning. He governs all things. Now, if you admit creation, then you have to admit that. You have to admit that he creates all things and he governs all things because he has the right to do that. So let's talk very briefly with the time we have remaining. I want to look at creation versus evolution, as we've kind of been talking about. Evolution has to deny biblical creation because we know, according to the Bible, like God created on the seventh day, God's creative work has ceased. Mm-hmm. Here's why I tell people this all the time. I'm like, listen, do me a favor. I'm going to prove to you. I can prove to you that number one, God exists, but he also is the creator. I tell people, close your eyes and I want you to make a new color. Imagine a brand new color. Impossible. You can't do it. You can close your eyes and you can imagine and try to make a new color. You can't make one because you can only deal with what's already here.
Right.
Like your only process was already here. You can close your eyes and I tell them, I say, listen, I want you to imagine the most mythical creature. I want you to make the most mythical creature you can come up with. And I'm going to explain it to you. Like when you finish thinking about it. So they like it. All right, I'm done. I'm done. Tell me about my creature. I can't give you specific details, but I can promise you it's got several eyes. It's probably got some wings. It's probably got several legs. I don't care how you put it together. You're going to have to put it together with stuff you know.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Can you imagine going and doing that with a 5-year-old?
He gonna get some
It's gonna be a denial.
blowing their mind. But the creative work has ceased. Genesis 2:2. It's over. Hebrews chapter 4, verses 3 and 4. Like God has ended his creative work, but that's not what evolution says. Evolution says creative work should still be happening.
No, and that's the thing about it, because man wants to be smarter than God. And he says, okay, so look at it this, if you got a bird and this beak is a little bit bigger, oh, that's evolution right there. No, that's still that same
adaptation.
Beak. That's that same beak, or certain things that happen. People born in certain areas have certain immune systems. It's all these things are not evolution, like are not going to enhance what God has done. It's still the same thing. Because like I said, if that's the case, if evolution is for a fact, we should be developing some type of superpowers. We should be developing something.
Sure.
We're still human beings after all these years. We're not walking on walls. We're not turning Spider-Man. We've not started flying. God had the way he designed from the beginning. His design is going to be the same. As you said, he's the only one who can create and destroy.
Yeah.
So that's going to be with everything. So
and when you talk about creation, he fixed gender. And I'm not making light of the fact that people have gender dysphoria or identity crises, considering gender. I'm not making light of that. What I'm saying is there's only XX and XY. Like that's all there are.
That's even in scripture.
That's the only two pairs of chromosomes that you're going to have, XX and XY, and they determine gender. Now, people don't want to hear that, but I'm a Christian and that's what I believe. Again, that's not to discount anything that people are dealing with mentally or from a social perspective even. Because I see it every day. I see it every day. But only two sexes though. Right. Yeah, male and female.
1 Timothy 2:8.
Yes.
And 1 Timothy 2:9.
Yes.
1 Timothy 2:8.
Yep.
I will therefore that men, male species, verse 9 deal with women.
And near.
Right.
Yeah. And so Genesis 1:26 and 27, he made them male and female. Right. Second, evolution denies the historicity of Genesis. In chapters 1 through 11, we know that they're supposed to be mythical, proposed to be mythical, but Jesus quoted from them.
Right.
Luke chapter 3, verse 28 and verse 34. Jesus quoted from those chapters. So they have to be real. They have to be as real as being quoted from. Then you have the gap and the day age theories that one day is 1,000 years, or there was a gap between the days and creation, because you have people who want to be theistic evolutionists. They want to believe in God, but they also want to believe in evolution. They will try to merge the two with these theories. But you have to look at passages like Luke chapter 3. And then finally, as our time gets away from us, evolution denies the fixity of kind. And this is what goes back to what you were talking about, Key. You can't reproduce with an ape. Nope. You can't get a blood transfusion with a monkey. I don't care how close their DNA may seem. Right. There's only 4 types of flesh, 1 Corinthians 15:39. So we got to end right here, fellas. If you like to reach out to us and submit questions or comments regarding the show, we'd love to address those. Make it plain, hab22@gmail.com. May God bless you and keep you as you seek to conform your will to his.